If you clicked on this video, it's probably because you feel stuck in one way or another in Valorant and you've been searching for answers. But in the back of your mind, you might be wondering, is this another video telling me just to play and practice more and VOD review myself? You might even be thinking, why should I even listen to this guy? Well, my name's Konpeki and I've been coaching Valorant over the past 4 years. And what's unique about my coaching experience is a sheer amount of data that my team and I have collected inside of my coaching program. To give you an idea, we have a team of 12 Radiant and world-class VCT coaches that can coach up to 80 players throughout a 10-week period. And each player that we coach gets about 10 hours of coaching per week. If each player gets 10 hours of coaching per week, the program is 10 weeks long, and there are 80 players. That means we can collect the stats, data, and results from 8,000 hours worth of coaching per season to figure out exactly what it takes to get consistent results like this for our players. And ever since I launched this program, we've had 20 groups or seasons finish and complete the program. So the point is, we've seen a lot. I mean a lot, to really know what works and what doesn't. So in this video, I'll cover 4 of the most common habits I've seen players fall into that keep them hard stuck. And if you need more hands-on help and you want to rank up 500 RR in 10 weeks guaranteed, or you get your money back, you can hop on a free one-on-one call with me or one of my coaches using the link in the description below to see if you'd be a good fit for our coaching program. Now, the first habit that I most commonly see from players who are hard stuck is they have a tendency to fill way too often. I get it. It's annoying when you see 3 people insta-locking duelists the moment you load in. So being the nice person that you are, you decide to fill, even if you're not the most comfortable playing that role. Well, I hate to break it to you, but what if I told you that you're actually doing a disservice to your team instead of doing them a favor by filling a role you're not comfortable with? By filling, you set yourself up to have a much harder game than normal. So you actually have to depend on your teammates for them to perform above average to compensate for your subpar agent knowledge. Just take a look at this tracker profile, for example. Before we started coaching this player, you can see that most of their games were on initiators. Even though this player had over a 50% win rate playing duelists, this player was letting other players insta-lock duelists and filled Sova and Fade. However, this actually ended up hurting them because this player had a sub 50% win rate across a total of over 200 games on Fade and Sova. So the very first thing that we've asked them to do is to stick to the agents that they're already having a lot of impact with. And once this player stopped filling initiators, we helped them get really good at one specific role in the game, which helped this person shoot up from being hard stuck in Diamond all the way to Immortal 1 in just a span of 7 weeks. If your goal is to consistently climb in ranked, the last thing you want to do is having to rely on your teammates to outperform the enemy team. Instead, you have to be the one that takes full ownership to create the most impact for your team. Now, the second subconscious habit that you might have if you're hard stuck is you may have a habit of blindly following somebody's advice in a one-dimensional way. Whether you get advice from videos, a friend that's higher ranked than you, or a pro player talking on their stream, none of the tips really matter if you don't understand the context in which that advice is given. For example, you might have heard tips being thrown around about how crouching is bad, spraying is bad, and ADSing is bad, but all these mechanics are in the game for a reason, and they can actually be really good when used in specific scenarios. I've made tons of guides on these topics already, but to give you some examples, Primi, who probably has one of the best mechanics in the game, incorporates a ton of crouching into his peaks, and it works really well because it throws off people's crosshair placement in higher ranked lobbies. Durka loves to spray when he's committing to gunfights, and Ye loves to ADS when he's methodically using dedicated peaks to clear angles. All these players figured out patterns of when certain plays are optimal for their individual playstyle. So make sure you avoid falling into the trap of using blanket statements for tips because a lot of tips depend on certain conditions to be met. What you want to do instead is to learn how to think for yourself and recognize the patterns and factors that make a play viable for you. Because what's the point of having someone give you the right answers if you can't come up with them on your own in the moment that you're playing the game? At the end of the day, you have to figure out what works best for you as an individual, and that brings us to the third habit you might have that's keeping you hard stuck, and that is you have a habit of taking high risk, low return plays. Many hard stuck players tend to make plays that seem flashy or risky without properly weighing the potential outcomes. These might be unnecessary hero plays like pushing aggressively when there's no info or taking 1v1 fights when your team is up in numbers. Occasionally, you might pull it off, but more often than not, it results in a loss. That type of decision making won't help you climb, because climbing is all about knowing how to create consistent impact in the round and playing to your strengths. That's why the best players in Valorant don't make risky plays just for the sake of it. Instead, they recognize low risk, high reward opportunities. Take a look at Zekken for example. In this clip, Zekken's team doesn't have the best of buys, and he'd like to make a play to take some of the pressure off his team. Because he knows walking out mid alone is risky, he asks 2 of his teammates to hold the window for him to mitigate the odds of him dying. That way, as he walks up mid, he catches 2 enemies unaware, hits a nice shot on the clove, and ultimately tries to get out as soon as possible since he got the advantage he came for. As he runs away, he calmly tells his teammates to do the same, as he says, we're good. But unfortunately, they decide to hold the angle for a bit too long, resulting in them getting killed by Jett and Killjoy, who are attempting to trade out Zekken. However, because Zekken rotated off so quickly, he's already ahead of the enemy rotation so that he's able to get another kill on C. This is what ultimately gave his team the edge to win out the retake, even though they were on a weak buy round. Now, a key difference between high risk plays with low reward versus high reward and medium risk plays like these is that his intention isn't to get as many kills on mid as possible. For example, he didn't re-swing after he got the first kill. Another crucial difference is that he also asked his teammates to help him mitigate some of the risks that would normally come with a mid push. If there was nobody watching window, this was definitely more of a high risk play. So it's really good that he asked his teammates for their support. Finally, you can see that he's super aware of what a play like this might do to the rotations of the enemy. Once the enemy spotted lots of players aggressing on B, they decided that C probably had a relatively weak hold and they rotated in that direction. Zekken was ahead of this though, and that's what gave him another crucial kill, aiding his team in winning the round. So just like this example, once you've identified which plays work consistently for you, you need to double down on them. This is key. When a pro blackjack player knows that the deck is in their favor, they don't hesitate. They trust the stats, the strategy, and the long-term odds. The same thing applies in Valorant. If you figured out what works, whether it's your entry pathing, peak timings, or util setups, you have to commit to those strategies consistently. And here's the thing, even when you're making the right plays, you won't always win. Just like a professional poker player sometimes loses with a good hand, or a blackjack player doesn't always win despite counting cards. However, over time, the odds are in their favor. So even with Valorant, if you know you're making the right choices, don't lose your confidence over a few rounds that you lost. The best players don't doubt themselves in those moments because they trust the process. They know that by focusing on low risk, high reward plays, their win rate will stabilize above 50%, and that's how they'll keep climbing in the long run. So next time you're in game and about to make a decision, ask yourself, is this a high risk and low reward play? If it is, step back and think about how you can rig the game in your favor by waiting for a better opportunity. Once you start focusing on those low risk, high reward plays consistently, you'll see a huge improvement in your results over time. The last habit that I want to talk about that is most likely keeping you hard stuck is you have a habit of measuring your success based on outcomes instead of inputs. I get it. Being hard stuck in the same rank for multiple episodes can be extremely frustrating. But when you're feeling frustrated, you have 2 choices. Either you can stay frustrated and spiral out of control into tilt queuing because you focus on your rank and let that rank define you as a failure. Or you can see your struggles and your rank as an indicator that there are plenty of learning opportunities available for you to improve as a player. I guarantee you, if you try to define your success in Valorant purely based on your stats or your rank, you'll never be happy or satisfied because you'll constantly be comparing yourself to your expectations. I see this a lot happening to the players that we coach because a lot of these players want to rank up really quickly in a short amount of time. And I get it too. I remember when I placed in silver, all I cared about was quickly getting to the next rank. I was super happy when I hit Immortal for the first time because it felt like all my hard work paid off. But the gap between Immortal 1 and Radiant was still so big. And I remember getting frustrated so easily at myself or my teammates for even the slightest mistake because I just wanted to win so badly. Subconsciously, I was raising the stakes for every single game that I was playing, and as I slowly began to lose my patience, it led me to make even more mistakes. I finally realized how much I was so focused on the outcomes when I was stuck in Immortal. I was miserable being constantly stuck in a win-loss Christmas tree cycle and wondering when I would finally be able to break free from being hard stuck. And that's when I remembered how much fun Valorant was when I was just new to the game. Back then, I didn't care what rank I was because I had nothing to prove to anyone. And it was fun being curious about the game and wanting to learn something new every time I hit the Q button. So once I had this realization, I had a mindset shift back to focusing on my inputs, which is the work I did every day to learn and improve, instead of my outputs, which was focusing on winning or losing the game and my rank. And once I did this, I started to see more progress again. I remember when I was just focused on the outputs, I would easily burn out after playing a few games. But with this mindset shift, I was able to grind sometimes even 15 to 20 games a day during COVID. Yeah, I know I was kind of a degenerate, but time just flew by because I really enjoyed playing the game again. That's eventually what allowed me to hit Radiant. My reaction wasn't the same as when I hit Immortal because my focus was still set on what I can do to keep improving now that I reached Radiant. So I hope this story, along with everything else I shared in this video, resonates with you guys, and I hope that if you're Hardstuck, you can take away some of these tips and immediately apply them into your next ranked games. Thanks for watching.